And now we bring you Killer Wives, episode 18, Stylist. These are the case facts against Monica Simentelli, who had her own husband murdered. Isn't trust a bitch? Los Angeles, California, home of the Hollywood Walk of Fame, the Hollywood sign, and for the murder of one Mr. Fabio Simentelli.
Negative K, nothing further, just see the cabby in the corner.
Fabio Simentelli, also called Big Daddy by his close friends, was one of the most well-known stylists and hairdressers to the stars in the world. In fact, Mr. Simentelli was so well known within his industry that he was featured on several television shows and international competitions. Simentelli married his second wife in 1997, Monica Crescentini, who would in the future have him assassinated. He gave her a coveted position of authority within his ever-growing franchise. You see, at the time, the power couple who seemed inseparable lived together in Toronto, Canada before Fabio was promoted to Vice President of Education for the beauty giant Wella. Now, Wella AG is a major German hair care company headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. Founded in 1880 by Franz Stroher, it specializes in hair care, styling, and colorants sold to individuals as well as hairdressers. With Fabio's big promotion came a big move to Hollywood in the City of Lights, Los Angeles. The couple moved with their two daughters, Jessica and Isabella, to a $1 million mansion in Woodland Hills, California. Fabio and Monica were known to be head over heels for each other by their friends and family. They were believed to have the perfect marriage, as a lot of couples do. And life, into the sting of betrayal, would come knocking at Big Daddy's door a full 20 years after they said, "I do." Yes, it was a dark day indeed when the Simentelli's youngest daughter, Isabella, found Fabio dead on the patio of their home on January 23rd, 2017. The patio near the poolside is where Mario normally went to relax after a long day within his international industry. He was a very happy, outward-going man that lit up whatever room he entered. It was said that he always went to the loneliest person in the room and made them feel like the most valuable person in that room. So while relaxing at poolside, it was said that he enjoyed a sniff of tequila and a nice fat cigar as he came down off of the day in his favorite spot. On that particular day in broad daylight at approximately 4:15 p.m., Mario had no idea that there was to be an attempt made on his life. Surveillance cameras at the home of one of his closest neighbors of that exclusive community caught two jogging men wearing hoodies with their face completely covered up. They had every inch of their body, to include their hands, covered in order not to be recognized, and gloves to hide their hands while illegally entering the Simentelli property. Fabio was home alone in the backyard of that Woodland Hills, California home when those two men sent by his wife, wearing hoodies, sneaked onto his property. The two men, who had been familiarized with the home's layout entered the home throughout the master bedroom. Why? And how so easily? You see, Fabio was on the patio at the time of the slaying. As the 49-year-old hair care executive and father of three was watching his favorite TV program, he was jumped from behind and attacked. Two men were needed to counteract Mr. Simentelli's size, so one could hold while the other savagely stabbed him. In this vicious, cowardly slaying, Mr. Simentelli, while crying out for his life, suffered 7 stab wounds to the neck, chest, and his thigh. Whoever attacked him knew where to hit him for the kill shot. His critical femoral artery in his leg and his carotid artery in his neck were cut on both sides. These two unknown assailants did not want to leave the house without ensuring that Big Daddy was dead, for that is the job they were sent there to do. After Mr. Simentelli breathed his last, his vicious attackers ransacked Fabio and his wife Monica's bedroom in order to make it look like a burglary. But what they did next would end up being more telling than a made-up burglary. For the murderous duo went to a secret location within the family garage and removed the DVR and security tape from where the home security footage was stored. Within a window of 35 minutes after jogging to the stylist's home to murdering him in cold blood, they left. Now cleaning up the scene indoors on their way out. The intruders drove away in style as they fled in an immediate right turn out of the driveway in Mr. Fabio's shiny black 2008 Porsche 911. The Los Angeles Police Department immediately put out an all-points bulletin for that vehicle, hoping they would catch the perpetrators of this crime, but could not locate it. 2 days later, that car turned up, abandoned about 5 miles from the murder location. On the afternoon of the murder, as Fabio's body lay there, cooling to the outdoor ambient temperature, he would not be left alone for long.
Everybody, Fab here for another Fab Style Friday, episode number 4, and today we're going to talk attitude. If you've ever come across somebody who you thought is very successful in the industry, more than likely, when you really boil it down, it's not really their hairdressing skills, it's not really their precise cutting skills to that degree, or even their business acumen. It really boils down to how they treat other people, how they make other people feel, and as well as how do they help empower the people that are next to them.
Around 5 p.m. that fateful day, Fabio's youngest daughter Isabella arrived home as she normally would. Isabella immediately sensed something was wrong when she began to see bloody shoe prints and blood on the floor, leading to where her father would normally be. She found her father that day slumped over in his favorite chair outside, dead. Isabella had missed her father's savage killers by a mere 9.5 minutes. Fabio's murder was so fresh that his body would not have had the time to fully achieve the surrounding temperature of 53 degrees outside on that average Los Angeles afternoon. Now, you gotta wonder how shocking that must have been for a daughter of one of the most beloved persons in Hollywood to find her father this way. Fabio never had a chance to defend himself in that surprise attack. In the area where he lay dead was usually where he made motivational tapes for people to view over the internet. He didn't think his job was just to do hair care. He thought his job was to motivate people. He was a motivator for free. In the area where Fabio had been beaten, stabbed over his upper body and face, detectives found foreign blood at the crime scene, which did not match either Simentelli's or anyone else being suspected at the time. You see, typically when an attacker stabs another person so aggressively, they have a better than average chance of their fingers accidentally sliding down the blade and cutting themselves in the process. In a lot of cases are just like this. But due to the lack of evidence and the murder scene looking like a break-in, the police suspected the knock-knock burglars instead of a purposeful hit on Mr. Simentelli's life. You see, around that same time period, the knock-knock burglars, who were tended to operate in small groups, earned the moniker because someone would usually knock on the front door and in some cases call the residents to see if anyone's home before breaking and entering into the side of their house or the back. But up to this point, none of the knock-knock burglars had ended in death or murder. In fact, burglars rarely ended in murder. But fortunately for the family, the murder of Fabio Simentelli would see a breakthrough in the case in the form of a DNA forensics report that would turn the case on its head. This will manifest itself shortly in the blood that was left on the scene separate and apart from Mario's. It seems that the killer would have made a mistake. Now, meanwhile, neighbors, friends, and acquaintances couldn't wrap their minds around anyone hurting Fabio. Fabio had no enemies. He would charm you with his personality and his witlessness. It was terrible to think that this is the way that Fabio had died because he was such a great guy, were the comments of a few of his friends and coworkers. You don't think anyone deserves to die that way, but especially not a really good person that you really love and you know is kind and loving. It just didn't make any sense. At first, Los Angeles police believed that his death was a result of the home invasion burglary gone, a mistake, gone awry. But soon, now, their focus moved closer to home. On June 14, almost 5 months after the murder, police arrested Fabio's adoring wife, Monica, and her lover, Robert Baker. Robert Baker was a convicted sex offender and an ex-porn actor turned racquetball coach. Miss Simentelli had not only allowed this man to murder her husband, but to be around her 2 teenage daughters, which was already in violation of his probation as a sex offender. It was amazing enough that she allowed the killer to attend the wake of Mr. Simentelli at the house 2 days after his death. For days, the detectives were left in the dust until Fabio's relatives and friends attended a family memorial. Now, Robert Baker was present at that memorial and was introduced as a friend of Monica's, whom she had met at the gym. Remember? He was a coach at the gym. So people grew suspicious as the unknown man at the gathering and someone clicked a picture and sent it to the investigating officers. Now, there was a suspect. It was around this time that the police caught a break in the case when they found Robert already in their database as a registered sex offender. The unidentified blood found at the crime scene also matched Robert's DNA. Armed with this evidence, the police arrested Robert Louis Baker and Monica Simentelli soon after. They were charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder together. Amazing. A wife and her lover. A lot of these cases ring the same way. Now, Monica's arrest came only 2 days after she accepted a Lifetime Achievement Award in her late husband's honor. Amazing again. In that speech, she expressed how much she loved and missed him, but she failed to mention that his absence was because of her. At the time, it was more important for her to appear as a grieving wife. You see, prosecutors alleged that the lovers had concocted a plan to kill Fabio Simentelli in order to collect the life insurance money in the amount of $1.6 million. On the day of the murder, Monica and her lover met up secretly in a parking lot of a local Target store and finalized what would happen. It was decided that she should stay away from the house. It was decided that she should be seen shopping at Target and then later at a local grocery store before going back home. Now, this was needed in order for the surveillance cameras could take a date and time of her whereabouts during the murder. To add insult to injury, in her husband's death, it was agreed that she should allow her 16-year-old young daughter to arrive home first in order that she would not look suspicious. Amazing. She could win the Mother of the Year award for what she just done. Now, Monica fully intended for Fabio to be murdered, Los Angeles County Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman replied. She wanted him out of the way because she wanted to be with Robert Baker, the man she sent to kill her husband. She said at the time that she was unhappy in her marriage, even though at the same time she acted like the loving, adoring wife. Now, on the other side, Monica's lawyer had this to say about the case. I wish we knew who the true murderer was. And that's from Leonard Levine. Now, all we do know is that it was not Miss Simentelli. She loved her husband very much. Earlier that same year, a Superior Court judge vetoed an attempt to drop the special circumstances allegations in that case, which her lawyer was hoping for. Now, The special circumstances in the case was that she wanted to reap the rewards of his life insurance, and that is what motivated her to kill him. One of his sisters, Loretta Piccoli, wrote that her family was outraged at Gascon's policies, which she says protected criminals instead of defending victims. While Marella Simentelli, Rhoda, urged the judge not to take away her brother's rights and dignity by new reform policies that don't serve the innocent, but lessen the severity of the crime committed. Now, the order to shell the allegations had come from recently appointed District Attorney George Gascon as part of his new reforms. And you know about new reforms, they let criminals off and people suffer. It was the District Attorney's attempt to reduce the time of criminals. The director was criticized by Fabio's sister and son. By dropping the special circumstances, justice is threatened, Fabio's son Luigi wrote to the court. The truth cannot come to light in these circumstances, Luigi added. I will never get to speak to my father again. I will never get to experience his warmth, his love, his confidence, or his endless generosity. None of us will. He continues on by saying, we lost the patriarch of our family. According to cops, Monica Simentelli and Mr. Baker, the ex-porn star, had been having an affair for around 18 months, ladies and gentlemen, before they eventually decided to murder Fabio to get at his $1.6 million insurance policy. It also accuses Monica of forwarding an email to her secret lover on how to access home closed-circuit television devices and notified him when her husband would be alone. Ms. Simentelli went as far as live streaming the whereabouts of her husband from the closed-circuit TV to her small smartphone. Now, Ms. Simentelli also gave telephone access to her lover so he too could see the location of Mr. Simentelli once they assaulted the house. This is amazing. In effect, a wife watched her husband being murdered live and in full color. During the subsequent investigation, Ms. Simentelli called an LAPD homicide detective numerous times demanding to know why Fabio's life insurance bonanza was being withheld from her. I guess Ms. Simentelli didn't know that insurance companies are squeamish in paying out death insurance in the case where a wife could be the cause of death. Now, court indictments said the adulterous pair communicated via cell phones and encrypted communication applications regarding their plan to kill victim Fabio Simentelli, and that Mr. Baker solicited an unknown co-conspirator to assist him in killing victim Fabio Simentelli. Remember, it was two guys that ran to the house, not just one. She was decided safe, but it was two men that murdered him. Now, they haven't found this guy today. Because of the money motive, Monica convicted felon Baker will be eligible for the death penalty if they're found guilty. 5 months later, Monica Simentelli, 45, and her clandestine boyfriend, Robert Louis Baker, were arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Now, due to the pandemic that we're going through currently, the murder trial of the Simentelli's alleged killers, former Torontonian Monica Simentelli and her boyfriend Robert Baker, will likely be delayed from the original July 7 trial date. Now, Fabio's middle sister said in an interview, cops say that Simentelli had her beau sent hundreds of text messages in the days leading up to the heinous crime. And while his devastated family was grieving, his widow was having sex in a Las Vegas hotel room with Baker, who even showed up for the wake. On the same day, the grieving widow contacted her hubby's company and MetLife Insurance to make an insurance claim. She contacted LAPD numerous times about the insurance claim. She wanted that money. She didn't want him. After 20 years of marriage, she wanted that money. Now, Monica also badgered Fabio's family for cash. While she was begging for money, she was traveling with her lover and living it up, living a good life. At her husband's funeral, Monica and her beau met in the master bedroom of their home to discuss how they would fabricate their stories for family and friends and detectives. A police source claims she continually told them whoppers as they investigated her husband's slaying. Great lies. Now, while she was posting photos and statements crying about Fabio's death, she was having sex, like I said before, with Mr. Baker in a Vegas hotel room. They were charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder together. Both Monica and Robert pleaded not guilty to the charges they were arrested against. What an odd case, right? Now, Once on trial, the prosecution brought out evidence showing how Monica was with Robert just days after the murder of her husband. The prosecution claimed that the motive for the murder was to retrieve the $1.6 million insurance policy that Fabio had on his life. The indictment claimed that the two communicated via cell phone and other encrypted communication methods regarding their plans of action. It alleged that Monica's alibi of going shopping at the time of the murder was staged, and that she was the one who notified Robert about her husband being alone before stepping out to secure an alibi for herself. Now, the duo was also accused of roping in a third yet unknown conspirator to help them in the murder plot. As of today, the duo is still in pretrial custody in a California City Correctional Facility awaiting their day in court. Now, during the week that Mario's wife received his posthumous Lifetime Achievement Award, she placed a home up for sale in Hollywood at $1.6 million, which is the same amount as the insurance policy she had been fighting for and fighting the police to get. The next day after his murder, she continued living at home, so I guess she was pretty cold-hearted enough where that didn't even bother her. These cases are amazing. If not motivated by money, motivated by something that's pretty small. For Killer Wives, this is Charles Rivers. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again next time.